Hello and welcome to Tracy Momi Reads. This is part two of my two-part video, my top 10 favorite books. I want to apologize first of all because someone's having some yard work or something done, so there may be some noise in the background, but hopefully it won't be too distracting. So without further ado, let's get to the first book. And again, these are in no particular order. They're just like 10 books throughout my lifetime that I've read that I feel like they had real impact. They were stories that I still remember to this day, even though some of them I have not read in a very long time. So next up we have Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. Eat, Pray, Love. And this one has been made into a movie starring Julia Roberts, but I haven't seen it. I think a part of me, nothing against Julia Roberts, but I just didn't want to take away from the experience that I had of remembering the book. Because as we all know, once books are, adapted to television or to movies, a lot of stuff changes. And I just wanted to remember this one the way that it was. And this is it's a nonfiction book, actually. The author, Elizabeth Gilbert, she wrote this book after she had a really painful divorce. She realized she just wasn't happy in her marriage, and her and her husband divorced, and then she went on this quest to kind of find herself. So she traveled all over the world, and the first place that she ended up was in Italy. And again, I have not read this book in a while, so I don't remember the specific towns or places that she went in these different areas that I'm going to be talking about. But I know she went to Italy, and she let herself have the experience of just fully immersing herself not only in the Italian culture but in their food. Worldwide, Italy is known for their cuisine. They have the best Italian food in the world because that's where it originated. So, and even on the cover, it's interesting because you can see like the word eat, she has it spelled out with pasta. So she had some incredible, experiences with food, and she just kind of changed her mind about how she thought about food, didn't care about weight, didn't care about what was healthy or any of that. She just submersed herself in that culture, and she just found it to be something that was just really freeing. So then her next travels took her to, I believe she went to India, and there's some prayer beads on here for the word pray, because she got more in touch with her spiritual side and really changed her thoughts on what it meant to connect with a higher power. And all of this was about unlearning things that she had been taught throughout her whole life, which sometimes can be the bane of our existence. It could be the source of our misery because we feel like there's this certain way that we should be living our lives based on what somebody else has indoctrinated in us. They've given us all these rules and all these things that we try to abide by, and at some point that just doesn't work for us in our life. And that's kind of the journey that Elizabeth Gilbert went on. And then the last one, love, there's like all these tropical flowers spelling out the word love. She went to Indonesia, and I'm pretty sure she was in Bali. Yeah, I think she went to Bali, and the experience that she had there, that's where she met someone and she fell in love. Again, after thinking that maybe once her marriage was over, that was it for her. So it was a really eye-opening book, and you feel like through her writing that you traveled to all these places with her. And as she talks about her experiences and what they each one meant to her, is like you're having your own set of revelations. So I really enjoyed this book. This was a really good book. I actually don't know what happened to my copy of it, and this is one that I may get again just to have on hand and reread it. So Eat, Pray, Love. The second book, I'm gonna look and see when was this book written. I've had this book for a very long time. I'm trying to see when it was published. Oh my God, this was published originally in 1986, but it says that the 28th printing of the book was in 1991, which is probably when I got it. It's a little bitty pocket-sized book, and it's called All I Really Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. Uncommon Thoughts, Uncommon Things by Robert Fulghum. All I Really Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. This book was one of the first self-help type books or inspirational type books that I read. And just like he says, Uncommon Thoughts, Uncommon Things, it's such a little common sense book. And I think after, and this is the thing, when you're like a kid, growing up, we're all taught the same things. And I'm going to read what he has on the back here. But as you become an adult, you throw a lot of that out the window and you try to conform maybe to groups that you're with or people that you're with or things that you feel like should be the way an adult would behave. But this is a very practical guide to life that if more people would follow, we probably wouldn't be having a lot of the issues that we have now. And I have to read this to you guys, but it says, most of what I really need to know about how to live and what to do and how to be, I learned in kindergarten. Wisdom was not at the top of the graduate school mountain, but it's there in the sand pile at Sunday school. These are the things I learned. Share everything, play fair, don't hit people, put things back where you found them, clean up your own mess, don't take things that aren't yours, say you're sorry if you hurt somebody, wash your hands before you eat, flush, warm cookies and cold milk are good for you, live a balanced life, take a nap every afternoon, and when you go out into the world, watch out for traffic, hold hands and stick together, and beware of wonder. I mean, really? But I think as adults, we forget a lot of this. But this is a really good, feel-good type book. And I'm pretty sure you can still get this. All I Really Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. One of my absolute faves. The next book, when I first read this book, The Autobiography of Malcolm X, as told to Alex Haley, because Alex Haley kind of penned it because he was the writer, and Malcolm X was able to tell a lot of his own story before his assassination. When I first read this book, I swear to God, I forgot I was reading like an autobiography. It reads like a fiction book. The stuff that this man went through, his life, his journey, it's insane. You just will get so swept up into this story. And I know a lot of people have different, opinions and thoughts, probably based on what other people have told them about Malcolm X, but you really should read this for yourself. And I will say that I did watch the movie, the Spike Lee movie starring Denzel Washington. And I guess because I'm just, a Denzel Washington fan, I thought he did an excellent job at portraying Malcolm X. And a lot of the story, because Spike Lee takes some creative liberties with his style of filmmaking. So there was some stuff that was left out. But to really get the full story, you really need to read his autobiography. I think this should actually be required reading, like history reading, in school, in like high schools or college. It is just that phenomenal. It starts from when he's a little kid through adolescent, his troubled adulthood. He spent some time in jail and how he kind of came out of that and, became a Muslim leader and then ultimately a target, not only by the American government, but there are people in his own organization. And at the end of the day, he just wanted equality, just like, he was like the other side of the coin from Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King was he preached about nonviolence and things like that. Malcolm X didn't advocate for violence, but sometimes it's like, when people are doing things, and I'm not just even talking about a political setting. A lot of times people take your kindness for weakness, or they don't feel like, you're not going to take what's yours, so I can come and get what belongs to you because you're just going to ask me nicely for it back. And he had a mantra that it was like, by any means necessary, we need to show up in force. We need to march, but we also need to be ready to fight, physically, mentally, and whatever that meant. And I think that it was a good balance that the two of them had that kind of pushed the civil rights movement forward. So his book is incredible. You should read this one. Okay, and then another one of my favorites, I think I talked about in when I did the tour of my bookshelf, how I had taken some of the dust jackets off of some books and I lost them. And this was one of the books that I took the dust jacket off of and can't find it. And this is, I will go to the title page so that I can show you. This is Waiting to Exhale by Terry McMillan. This is, she was the architect, as far as I'm concerned, of contemporary, like, African American and women's fiction in the 90s. Period, point blank. Terry McMillan, she was the standard back then. And this was one of, this book is still to this day, like, it has that formula of four friends, you know, all with these different personalities, and how they're navigating, you know, life, dating, marriage, and I don't know why I'm holding this up, y'all. There's nothing on here, but how they're navigating, you know, all of these things, and at the heart of it is their friendship and love and support of each other. And again, another book. This was another book that was made into a film, and back then it was really groundbreaking. I think Forest Whitaker directed that one with Whitney Houston, Angela Bassett, Lela Rochon, and Loretta Devine. And I really enjoyed that movie. I feel like all the ladies did a good job. But again, there was a lot of stuff that was left out. And I just would encourage you to actually read the book. A lot of humor. There's some tragedy. But at the end of the day, it's really a love story between the four friends, you know, quite honestly. And I love the way that all of these women were portrayed. And as an author, let me take a sidebar here. All of the women in her book, in this particular book, Waiting to Exhale, were, you know, black women, first of all. 4 black women. I think in this book, back when she wrote this, they were in their 30s. All educated. You know, a couple of them are very well off. They all have, you know, really good jobs. And I just feel like when I write, all of my characters are what they call upwardly mobile, you know. I just like writing stories or reading stories that denigrate in any way, shape, or form the essence of black people is just not something I'm interested in. It's not something I'm interested in reading. It's not something I'm interested in writing. It's enough of that done to us consciously and unconsciously in the media. So this book really, you know, was one of the first that I read where they were all boss babes. This was the Boss Babe book before Boss Babes was a thing. So yeah, Waiting to Exhale by Terry McMillan. Very good book. Okay, and the last one to round out my top 10 is another book that I had on the Kindle, and 32 Candles. And if you were to go back and look at the archive of all my videos on this YouTube channel, back when I used to mommy blog for a hot second, I actually did a book review of this like probably 7 or 8 years ago, if you want to see the full review. But this particular book, I really enjoyed it. It had been a while. I was kind of in a reading slump, had a lot of other stuff going on. So it had been a while since I'd actually read a full-length novel. And this was one of the ones I kind of started with. And I really enjoyed it. The story is about this girl, I think you pronounce her name Davida, but everybody called her Davy, and she was like a self-proclaimed ugly duckling, and she had a very hard, you know, upbringing with her mom, and then in school she was teased and bullied, and this is one of those revenge type stories. Like the author takes us through Davy's life, and then when she's an adult, all of those features that were, you know, made fun of and not looked at as so attractive, once she becomes an adult, it's like she blossoms into the swan, and she's getting all this attention from people, and she goes on a revenge spree. It's comical, but also a little bit sad. So it's kind of bittersweet. But yeah, it was a very entertaining book. And I remember, like, kind of when this book came out, there was some talk that they were going to adapt it into a film or a TV show. But I haven't seen anything since then. But this is a good one to check out as well. 32 Candles by Ernessa T. Carter. So that is going to round out my top 10. And like I said, these are just books that not only did I really enjoy when I read them, they left, a mark and an impression and the memories of them. All the, many, many years later after reading them. And I think that that's the mark of a good writer, a good story, when you still remember what that book was about, And like I said, a lot of these were made into movies that I've seen. So that probably is helping with my memory. But I know enough to know that a lot of stuff was left out. The only one, like I said, I didn't see was the Eat, Pray, Love. But yeah, so anyway, that's my top 10, and I will be back to a regular review next week. But I'm going to start mixing things up on the channel. Like, I think I'm going to do reviews every other week, and the weeks in between, I'll be doing something a little bit special. So be on the lookout for that. If you have read any of the books that I talked about today or in my previous video, let me know in the comments what you thought, or if you have some favorite books you want to share. I mean, my TBR is miles long, but I'm not above adding more books to it. So please, by all means, share. And also be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thanks.